All right, first test in the room. That's it, yeah. Give it up. First test in the room, right? First songs in the room. First Kavanaugh in the room. Where's Walt? There he is. All right, a lot of firsts tonight. So we looking forward to seeing feedback. What are the things that we like about this? What are the things we could change? Creative ideas of what do we need to do for this community? So let's go back to last week. Let's start with where we left off. Philippians chapter 1 was where we taught last week. We talked about Paul. We asked some questions. So pop quiz. You love pop quizzes, don't you? You guys were both here. Like, no, I don't like pop quizzes. Don't do it, man. Maybe I had to have some candy. It would be more motivating, right? Yes. All right. So for a Coke, I'll buy you a Coke. How about that? Or a Diet Coke. Which one do you like? Oh, all right. So last week we wrote. Who wrote this letter to Philippians? Paul wrote it. Who was he writing to?
The city of Philippi.
Excellent. And where was he writing it from? Boom, man. Rustin, buy this guy a Coke afterwards. Good job. One more question then. What was his focus on? Yep, come on. What was his focus on? Exactly, Rustin, right there. That was it. Did you catch that? He gave you the hint. Come on. What was his focus? Anybody help him out? Gratitude, right? He was grateful, writing from prison, in this probably not a good place to be, and he was writing about the gratitude that he had for this community, these people that he knew, that he loved, right? And that's what motivated him to each day, that he loved these people, right? And so as I was thinking about this today, I went back and I was going through a few of the thoughts that I had before, and I wanted to share a couple of things about the history of this place. Who are the Philippians? Who are these people that he's writing about? And Philippi was in this Macedonia, this Greek city, and they were mostly Romans or all Greeks. This is what the city was made up of, right? There was no Jewish population in the city whatsoever. Paul gets on his journey, he gets a vision from God to say, somebody saying, a man from Macedonia, come to us, please. Come and visit us. Come talk to us. Come teach us. And so Paul gets up the next morning and immediately goes off to Philippi. He starts traveling to Macedonia. And he comes to this city. Like I said, there's no Jewish population. There's no synagogue. And this is where he begins his ministry. And he goes down to the river on Shabbat to pray. Why would you go to the river on Shabbat to pray? Anybody? There you go, right? Bing, 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 bing. Right? There's no community. There's no synagogue. There's no spiritual community. So you go to the place where you're reminded of creation. You go to the place of living water, right? This idea of what this is all about. God's breath, God's creation, God's life. And so he goes to the river to pray with his companions. And who does he find there? We go to Acts 16. If you remember Acts 16, who does he find at the river praying because there's no Jewish community? Anybody remember? What? Not Cornelius, no. Yeah, now you're cheating. Come on, Rustin, who is it? It is something you can pronounce. It's Lydia, right? He finds this woman at the river praying, right? Now, this woman is not Jewish. Her name, she's very Greek. She's a businesswoman. She's a trader. Scholars do not agree whether she was a proselyte, a convert to Judaism, or she was a God-fearer, like us, right? She was just this Greek Western woman who knew of the Jewish God. And so she went to the place where she was taught to pray to this Jewish God. And Paul encounters her, and he shares this message about the Jewish Messiah to this woman who knows the Jewish God. And she and her whole family come to faith. They baptize them right there in living water, and she comes to faith in the Messiah. Paul's there for a little while. There's this woman that keeps following him around every time she sees him. She's possessed with something, the spirit in her, and she's a prophetess. So she was a slave, and so the people who kind of owned the slave used her to prophesy, what's your future going to look like? And she would give a prophecy, and a lot of times it would be correct, and she would do these things, but it was this every time that she came in contact with Paul, she would point him out like, you're the follower of the one true God of Israel, like saying all these things about him in an annoying, like cursing kind of way. And one day, Paul just says, out of her, in the name of Yeshua. Boom. This demon comes out of her. And what do the slave owners do then? Why? Right. He took their income. So here's this Jew in this Roman city, and you just disturbed the economy. You just disturbed the idea that, wait, I come to this woman, I want to know my future. I want to know I want my palms read, or I want, this tarot card. Like, she could just tell me, here's what my future is going to be, and just for a little bit of money. So I've disturbed the economy of everything that's going on. And so the jailers come and they arrest Paul. Without even any trial, they just, all this disturbance. Here's this Jew, this man, get him in jail. So they throw him in jail. While he's in jail, they beat him, right? Harshly beat him because, he's a dirty Jew. Like, this is a Roman town. Romans don't like Jews. So he's in jail after being beaten that night, and he's singing psalms to God. He's praying the Shema out loud. He's teaching the prisoners these prayers. He's singing these songs loudly to the prisoners. And everybody, it says, everyone is in the jail listening. And then all of a sudden, there's an earthquake. All of the doors in the jail spring open. What happens? If we're watching a movie, what would happen? What? Everybody bolts, right? Boom, we're out of here. Jail is open, we're gone, right? Everybody would think that. The jailer comes, because he's at home, all of a sudden he feels this earthquake, he runs to the jails, sees all these prison cells open. What does he do? Pulls out his knife, because his life is over, because he's lost all the prisoners, and he's about to kill himself. And Paul yells from the prison and says, wait! We're all still here. Nobody's left. And the jailer says, he doesn't give us everything that he says, but he's confused, and he's trying to figure out. He's like, what do I need to do? Because this is something I've never experienced before. And Paul tells him about this God that he's never known. He tells him about this Messiah and tells him that there's this good news that he can be saved, that his life can be transformed right here and now, and he doesn't have to live under this anxiety and stress and pain and worry and have to kill himself if something goes wrong. He can have hope in something greater. And him and his whole family come to know God and are baptized and are part of now this growing community with Lydia. And all of these crazy things continue to happen, but we find in this craziness, this small little group of people that used to meet at the river to pray is now growing and growing and growing because of what God is doing in these people's lives. And this is who Paul's writing to. This is who God brought him to the city, and now he's writing from prison again to this group of people that he's in awe of. He's in love with. The Spirit in them brings him joy. And these are the people that he can't stop thinking about. These Western people, non-Jewish people, who have been transformed by the power of the Messiah. So let's pick this up in Philippians where we left off. We didn't finish this part. Philippians 1, verses 21 through 25. Who wants to read that? Go ahead. Really loud.
For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to go on living in the body, this will be fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain, and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in faith, so that through my being with you again and boasting in Christ Jesus will abound on account of me.
Awesome. So we pick up where we left off before, and it seems as though, I don't know, could you hear a sense of tiredness in Paul? maybe a sense of depression, pain. Maybe he's just continued to suffer in these jails. In one jail, I mean, how many people would like to go from one jail, from one city to another jail to another jail? At what point do you just want to give up? At what point do you just want to say, it's enough? At what point are you running, what is it when you went from one line to the back line and just keep, what? At what point do you run suicides and you've just had enough? And you're like, I quit. I can't keep doing this. It's just too hard. At what point, like, you come to work every day and it's just, the piles keep mounting up and the stress keeps building up and all of these things are just one elephant after the other and it's just like, it's too much. I just want to be done. But what does it say? There's something that brings him back. That's something that keeps him coming back. And it's his responsibility that he feels to this community. How many of you guys work out at a gym? I know Abby works out here, right? How many of you have a workout partner? How many of you have a workout partner? Rustin? How many of you have a workout partner, Abby? Somebody that relies on you? Yeah? Anybody else? Yeah. Why is it important to have a workout partner? For motivation, why?
Well, when you're working out with a gym partner, there can be like competition to push harder.
Okay.
So it works out better with both of you in the long run.
Excellent. That's good. Why else? Give me another reason. What do you mean by accountability? There's this feeling of, what? Did you say something? Obligation. Yeah, how many of you, like, you want to just roll over? I don't want to go to practice today. I don't want to go to the gym today. I don't want to practice the band today. But there's an obligation. If I don't show up, what will happen? There's this person, there's these teammates that are depending on me to show up. And if I don't show up, maybe that person doesn't work out. If I don't show up, maybe that person doesn't work as hard as they should. If I don't show up, maybe these things don't happen. So we have this obligation that we have to be there. When someone depends on us, there's this natural inclination in each one of us, this gut feeling of, oh, man, I don't want to get out of bed today. I don't want to do that, but this person, if I don't show up, I'll let this person down. And how many of you like the feeling of letting people down? Nobody does. But I've learned over the time that that's a choice that we make. But it's not just good to have a workout partner. Ecclesiastes, we should all know this, right, from Ecclesiastes? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Right? We can work out by ourselves. We can do these things on ourselves. We can play by ourselves. But what I've learned is that community is not just kind of a good thing or kind of an important thing. Community is essential to life. It's essential to growth. It's essential to holiness. If we want to grow in our faith, we have to recognize if I don't grow or if I don't do the things that I need to do, I might let you down. Or if I stumble and fall and flake off and become lazy and apathetic, I'll let you down. And if you become apathetic and you become lazy, I might not want to do anything else either. I might just decide, I don't need any of this right now. I'm going to go watch a movie. Philippians 1:27. Kristen, read 1:27 through 2:2, please, really loud.
Only conduct your lives in a way worthy of the goodness of His sight, so that whether I come to see you or I hear about you from a distance, you stand firm, united in spirit, fighting with one accord for the faith of the good news.
Through 2:2.
Not trying to fight anything the opposition does. This will be for them an indication that they are headed for destruction and you for deliverance. And this is from God, because for the Messiah's sake it has been granted to you not only to trust in him, but also to suffer on his behalf. To fight the same battles you once saw me fight, now hear that I am still fighting. Therefore, if you have any encouragement for me from your being in union with Messiah, any comfort flowing from love, any fellowship with me in the Spirit, or any compassion and sympathy, and complete my joy by having a common purpose and a common love, by being one in heart and mind.
Paul moves from gratitude. He moves from overwhelming love for these people to now a charge. I love you, I love you, I love you. Now here's what I want you to do. And this is a lot of times a misunderstood perspective. So often we read this verse, we read these passages, and we think from our Western Greek perspective that we think this is all about doctrine, all about orthodoxy. As long as we think and agree on the same theology, that you believe the same doctrine that I believe about the Bible, and we're aligned in our theology, and you believe in Luther, and I have to believe in Luther, or you believe in Calvin, and I have to believe in Calvin. As long as we believe in Calvin, we are in one mind. We have to have one mind, which is one theological perspective in our brain of what we agree upon. But Paul's not Western. He's Jewish, right? He comes from an Eastern perspective. To be of like mind from an Eastern thinker is very similar to what Walt said at the very beginning. To be in one accord is to be as one group in awe of God together. The God who has shown you and me and us compassion and mercy and forgiveness that we did not deserve. To those who cry out to God and He is there for them. To be of like-mindedness is to be full of gratitude to God. When we are like-minded, we may have our differences. We may disagree on things that we think about, but when we stand before a holy God together, the focus of being like-minded is solely just on God. Not doctrine or orthodoxy. Our focus is on compassion. Our focus is on grace. Our focus is on the Spirit that is working in me and that I witness and see His Spirit working in each and every one of you. We focus on the Messiah and how He lived His life as an example of God's will. It's not about what I think or what we think. It's about how we live our lives. He continues this same thought in verses 3 and 4. Walt, read 3 and 4 really loud, please.
Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking down on your own interests, but each of you to the interest of the others.
He defines this oneness. He defines what this should look like. It was just, if this was a Jewish community, he would probably have used a remez. If he was talking to a synagogue, he wouldn't have had to spell this out. He would have just said something like, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Which you would know because you know the Torah by heart, which comes from what passage, Walt? When I say I am, Rustin, when I say I am my brother's keeper, what am I talking about? Excellent. Cain and Abel. Well done. There's your partner right there, right? Good job, honey. Good job, baby, as you would say, right? We have this thought that instantly we recognize the story. These two brothers, one comes before God and gives everything out of absolute gratitude. Here's everything that I have because I love you and I give to you. And another brother who gives because he's supposed to do this. And God shows favor to one. And the other brother gets jealous. And what does he do to the other brother? Does he scold him? Does he ignore him. No, he kills him because he's jealous, because he got something that he desired. Am I my brother's keeper? Or maybe Paul had something else in mind. Maybe there was a teacher who was just one generation before him. One teacher that all of Judaism at that time knew, and still one of the greatest Jewish teachers in today's world, a man named Hillel, which I found a great verse here. Not a verse, a great slide. Which I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was just going to show a vote 1-4, and somebody had actually put this up there, right? This is what it is. In Judaism, from a Jewish perspective, from Paul's perspective, Hillel once said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, as believers who are in absolute awe of God, we are to take responsibility for ourselves. But we're also to take responsibility for those around us. We are our brother's keeper. We are supposed to take responsibility for our family. Husbands, man, you are to take responsibility for your family. That is your job, that is your role, and that is what's lacking in society today. No longer do men take that role seriously. No longer do men recognize and realize the importance of what their job is as a father. I was listening to something today, and there was a rapper everybody was like, woo, yay, this great rapper. He's got 12 baby mamas and 22 kids. And they brought them all up on stage and glorifying this evil. And I call it evil because none of those children will know that father. They will be raised by a mom, and the husband of that house, the man of that house, will never be a part of those children's lives. And their lives will be, who knows, end up what? I mean, we just look at the statistics and we see what happens when there are fathers that are not a part of families. We see how children from broken homes or from fatherless homes end up in a high percentage in jail. Yet we still continue to glorify the baby mama generation. We still continue to glorify the lack of men in our society. We still raise up women, and don't get me wrong, I'm not misogynist. You can look at my ministry, you can look at my business. I think women should be in leadership. But we're at a point in society where we make men, I was watching Lord of the Rings, right? And every man in the Lord of the Rings is wimp, weak, feckless, a jerk, an idiot. What are we showing? We, as followers of God, as followers of Messiah, we are our brother's keeper. We have a responsibility as a role of who I am as a man, as a husband. I have a job. As a spouse, as a wife, you have a job. As somebody who is a part of a spiritual community, you have people that depend on you in this room. People need to see that. Because one of my favorite authors, Abraham Heschel, once said, next one. No, it's not up there. Go back a couple. One more. How did it not go up there? Abraham Heschel said, in a society that is broken and hurting, not all are guilty, but all are responsible. We live in a society that is broken. We live in a society like we see repeated over and over and over in history. When we look at society, we're not all guilty for it, but we each have a role and a responsibility to play. And when we ignore that responsibility, we continue to choose to allow society to decline as it has in history over and over and over again. Philippians 2:5. Let's finish this out. Who's got 5 through 9? You got it? Come on. Really loud.
In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used for an advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of the servant, being made in his likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, and even death on the cross. Therefore God exalted him to the highest place. He gave him the name above every name. That at that name of Jesus every knee should bow.
Excellent. This is the mind of Messiah. This is to be our mind. Not on doctrine, not on theology, not on orthodoxy. The Messiah, who has the agency of God, the Messiah, the Son of God, who has the power of God in man. And what did he do? What did he choose to do? How did he choose to demonstrate this power? He chose servanthood. He chose sacrifice. He chose selflessness. This was the mind of Messiah. Paul's focus on this whole mind is about character. The character of who you are. I was teaching in one of my classes at Nunez, this leadership class, and I said there's a lot of things that I've learned in my adulthood that I've learned that these things that I used to believe as absolute truths are now, a lot of these absolute truths are relative truths because of perspective. But I said there's 3 absolute truths that I absolutely believe in, that I still believe in. And that one is every human being is born. You agree with that? Absolute truth, right? Every human being will die. Correct? Facts? Facts. The other absolute truth is that everything that happens in between is an opportunity for impact. Everything that happens from your birth to your death is a choice that you get to make on how you live your life. And you have the choice of whether you can be an impact in somebody's life or a deterrent or a nothingness or an apathy. You get to choose how you live your life. That is a fact. We all have a choice. As I was thinking about this, now you can put that slide up. Oh, there it is. As I was thinking about this was last night, I was going through all of these things and trying to figure out, man, how do I wrap this up? How do I think about this? And I looked over at this drink I was drinking, and there's these words of enlightenment. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Energy flows where attention goes. Speak with your mind and heart. Energy flows where attention goes. If you remember, about a year ago, I had this saying that I would say all the time. You bring about, do you remember? You bring about what you... Nobody? Yeah. You bring about what you think about. What do you focus on? This was crystallized for me about a year and a half ago. I watched this movie, and I saw this vehicle. It was driving, and I thought, that's a really cool vehicle. I don't even know what that is. Like, I would really like to get one of those. That is awesome. I'm going to look into this. So I looked up the movie. I looked up the car. Come to find out, it was a Toyota FJ. I told my wife, she's like, that's the ugliest car in the world. You're not allowed to get that, right? She's like, those are dumb. It's like a FootJoy. I mean, you can't get it. I was like, but nobody around here has one. Like, I saw it on TV, but I don't see, nobody has an FJ. And so I'm driving to work like the next day after this conversation, whoosh, and there goes an FJ. It's like, oh, there's an FJ in this parish, right? And I'm driving home the next day. Whoosh, there's another FJ. And then 2 days later, whoosh, whoosh, there's like 3 or 4 FJs. And then the next thing I realize is there's FJs all around here. I just never saw them. And it wasn't until I changed my focus and I thought about this that all of a sudden my mind was opened up to like, oh yeah, it's everywhere. It's right here. They're all over the place here. They're not this unique. There's a lot of them. But that reminded me how often, because our focus is so closed off, that we miss what God is doing in our life. We close off everything because we miss what God is trying to say. Hey, dummy, go through this door. But because our focus is somewhere else, that's where our energy goes. What is your focus on? Is your focus on the problems that are happening in the world around you or in your own life? Is your problems, or is your focus on judging all those people who you just think are idiots, who just can't do the right thing? Is your focus maybe on lust? Maybe it's on the piling, mounting up work that you have to do every single day. Maybe is your focus on the next material thing you want to buy? Money. Is it notoriety? I want to be cool. I said last week that I felt like my energy was at an all-time low, that I was dry and empty. And as I was studying this week, I realized this is part of my problem. My focus every day for days has been on the nonstop work of what's going on around me. Staying up late, checking emails, or coming home late because I need to do something, and then getting up early and coming in the morning. The first thing I do is go to my desk or go to my office or go to here or go there, and I'm moving stuff around. And those are the first and the last things that I do every single day. And then I wonder why I'm so out of energy with God. I realized those are choices that I make. I have a choice of how I want to wake up. I have a choice of how I want to go to bed. I opened this book up. My friend Skip gave me this, The Way of God. And I was like, you know what? There was something tugging at me that I have to read this. And about Wednesday, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to crack this open. And then I realized I started reading this at night before I went to bed. And the next morning, I got up and I read the same chapter before I left to go to work. And then that night, I started the next chapter. And the next morning, I read that chapter again. And all of a sudden, I realized throughout my day, these were the thoughts that were on my mind. This was the focus of my heart. This is where all of a sudden this energy started coming back. This is where these ideas and this creativity started to come back to me that was gone and evaporated. But because my focus, because my energy started going here, my focus and my flow started to take place, that this is what it's all about. Energy flows where your attention goes. Do I read? Do I pray? Do I sing? Do I meditate? Or do I get on Facebook? Do I check my emails? Do I look at my Reels or my TikTok? Do I check my planner to make sure that I have everything organized for the next day? Do I keep working late into the night? I choose my focus, and I choose my thoughts. And where my thoughts go, my energy flows. This made me realize even more so what James meant, the brother of Yeshua, when he says, come nearer to God, and he will come nearer to you. If my focus is on God, it will feel like I am near God. When my focus is on all of these earthly things, I will feel eviscerated and far away from God. How Are we to be united as one community, as Paul was charging these people and encouraging these people that he absolutely loved, that were so similar to who we are today? It was by our pursuit of our thoughts and our energy. Are we, as one community, in awe of God? And do we live that way? Are our choices and our actions towards the way we live and towards our responsibility to the people in our lives? As Hillel said, am I for myself? If not now, when? When do I choose to be responsible for you? When do I choose to be responsible for the actions and the choices that I make? When? That's our choice as a community. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for the charge of Shaul, of Paul, to a community that is so similar to us. A community whose lives have been affected and have been changed and transformed by the power of your Messiah, of Yeshua, in our lives. I pray, Father, that our heart and our focus burns like a fire for you. And then we can recognize that each and every day we have a responsibility that is a choice that we make. A responsibility of how I am to live, and my responsibility that I am my brother's keeper. Father, I thank you for the example that Yeshua gave us as your living will, to live our lives selflessly, as a sacrifice, and to serve you and one another. I praise your holy name. Amen.